Excuse me. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this morning's meeting of West Berkshire Licensing Subcommittee. Can I please check that those who are attending virtually can hear? Lots of nodding. Thank you. Before we start, I please ask everyone present to switch off their mobile phones. Off. You need to be quick. Thank you. I'd like to confirm that the application we'll be hearing today is for Hungerford Park Estate, Hungerford Park, Hungerford, West Berkshire, RG17 OUU. I am Councillor Paul Dick, and I'm supported on this morning's subcommittee by Councillor Paul Kander, Councillor Nigel Foote, and Councillor Billy Drummond as substitute. The legal advisor to the subcommittee is Thea Noley, and Ben Ryan will maintain a record of the proceedings. Tom Radbourne is the Zoom host. Please note that this meeting is being webcast and recorded. Parties should therefore be mindful of this and bear this in mind in terms of the information shared during the hearing. I will set out the order in which people will be asked to speak. If at the appropriate point anyone wishes to ask a question, please raise your hand. If we need to adjourn the meeting at any point, I will adjourn and all parties will be advised of the revised time and date of the meeting. If we hear the evacuation alarm this morning, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed by the safe emergency route, which will be shown to us by the trained officers present. Please follow any instructions given. The assembly point is the car park of the Dolphin Public House. Anyone requiring assistance should notify the officers. If the lockdown alarm sounds, we remain seated and await instructions from the said officers. We will adjourn the meeting until such time as it is safe to proceed. Any questions about the outline of the Thank you. Can I check again that those remote have heard everything so far? Thank you very much. That's a good sign. Can I confirm that the applicants Stuart Gibson, Toby Hunter and Mark Slater are attending today in person?
Toby Hunter.
Thank you.
Stuart Gibson. I understand Mark is not able to attend this morning.
Thank you. Can I confirm that the objector, Councillor James Cole, is attending and intending to speak?
Yes, I'm here and speaking.
Thank you. Can I confirm that the objector, Ben Lebb and Julie Lloyd, are attending and intending to speak?
Yes, I'm attending and I intend to speak.
Thank you. And Julie Lloyd?
I'm here, but not intending to say anything.
Thank you. Can I confirm that the operator Dave Saul and Councillor Alistair Fife are attending in person and intending to only ask questions?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Can I confirm that Councillors Denise Gaines and Tony Vickers are attending in person and intending to speak?
Yes, Chairman. For me, anyway.
Thank you.
I'm not intending to speak unless I want to pick something up that Councillor Gaines hasn't said.
Unless so moved. Okay, noted. Thank you. Excuse me. Okay, I thought it did. Okay. Can I confirm that the objector, David Soul, is attending in person and intending to speak?
I'm attending in person, but do not intend to speak. I'm asking questions only, as previously said.
Thank you. All other relevant representation submitted in writing will be taken into consideration by the panel when they make their determination on this matter. Gentlemen.
So Langley Sharp, I'm one of the objectives and I'm intended to speak, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I will now go on to explain how this meeting will be conducted. The Council's licensing officer, Riley Timney, will introduce the application, after which The calling of parties will take place in the following order. Representations by the applicant, that is Stuart Gibson and Toby Hunter. Representations by the objector, Councillor James Cole, Ben Labb, Julie Lloyd, as previously discussed, Langley Sharp. Representations by ward member, summing up by the applicant, that is Stuart Gibson, Toby Hunter and Mark Slater. Remember, please, each group has 10 minutes in which to make their case. The total time allowed for the summing up to respond to any of the representations made shall not exceed 10 minutes, and this should take into account the Licensing Act's 4 objectives, which are, and these are the things that we will bear in mind very carefully, the presentation of crime and disorder, prevention, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Ben Ryan will be timing the 10 minutes and will notify you when you have a minute left. Once all representations have been and all questions asked, I will close the meeting. After this, the members will meet privately to make a decision, and a written decision notice will be issued to interested parties setting out the verdict as soon as possible, but in any event, within 5 working days of the hearing. Is everybody happy and clear about how we're going to proceed? Thank you. Sir.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification. Can I confirm that each group has 10 minutes to speak?
That is correct.
All the objectors combined must total 10 minutes.
That is
Thank
correct. Yes, sir.
As far as the objectors are concerned, it's intended that we split 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. It would be very helpful if we were timed to that effect.
Ben's happy to do that.
Many thanks.
I'd like to take this opportunity to remind all parties present that this is a public meeting and the meeting will be webcast on YouTube. It is therefore necessary to remind all attendees again that they're in a public forum and ask participants to bear this in mind in terms of anything said during the hearing. And an important point, and I'd like you to note this, please. I want to remind everyone that questions raised as part of the process may only seek to clarify a statement made and not to introduce new business. Can I just check again that those who are remote are still with us? Thank you. Chairman, I now ask members if they have any interests relevant to this application they wish to declare. There are. Yes, Miss.
Although I'm not actually voting, I was lobbied by the objectors.
That is noted. Thank you, Councillor.
Ditto, Chairman. Yes.
Without further ado, could I ask Riley Timney, the licensing officer, to proceed with introducing the application?
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear me? My name is Riley Timney and I'm the licensing officer with the Public Protection Partnership, and I will now introduce the application. On the 16th of January 2024, an application was received on behalf of Hungerford Park Limited for a new premises licence under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003. The application related to a premises located at Hungerford Park Estate, Hungerford Park, Hungerford, West Berkshire, RG 170UU. The application has been recorded on the licensing database under reference number 23636. The application was validated on the 16th of January 2024, and the statutory 28-day consultation period ran from the 17th of January 2024 until the 14th of February 2024. A copy of the application, including a location map and plan, is attached as Appendix 1 and 2 respectively. The application seeks to obtain the following licensable activities: supply of alcohol Monday to Sunday from 7 AM until midnight with sales on and off the premises. Live music Monday to Sunday from 2300 hours until midnight, indoors and outdoors. Recorded music from 2300 till midnight, indoors and outdoors. And late night refreshment, Monday to Sunday, 2300 until midnight, indoors and outdoors. I can confirm that the application was made in accordance with the Act. Responsible authorities, ward members and Hungerford Town Council were notified of the application via email on the 17th of January 2024. The application was advertised in accordance with regulations and with the required blue notices being placed at the premises and checked by an officer of the Public Protection Partnership. An advertisement for this application was also placed in the Newbury Weekly News on the 25th of January 2024. A total of 8 representations were received. 2 of these representations were received after the statutory consultation period had finished, thus cannot be included in this hearing. The 6 valid representations are attached as Appendix 4. Some of the main concerns of the representations received are related to risks associated with increased traffic, road safety and air pollution, the risk of noise nuisance, the safety of the properties near to Hungerford Park, and the increased likelihood of crime and disorder from intoxicated people, and that granting of this licence was undermine the licensing objectives. Mediation took place between the applicant, Thames Valley Police and Environmental Health, and subsequently additional conditions were agreed. These additional conditions, are attached as Appendix 5. A hearing was scheduled for the 12th of March 2024 in accordance with Schedule 1 of the Licensing Act 2003 Hearings Regulations 2005. On the 26th of February 2024, Mr. Stuart Gibson, the applicant's agent, contacted the licensing authority to request that the hearing be adjourned to a later date due to no longer being able to attend due to unforeseen personal circumstances. Having considered Mr. Gibson's request, the licensing authority was satisfied that it was within the public interest to extend the time in which this hearing had to be arranged to the 16th of April 2024. This was done in compliance with Regulations 11 and 12 of the Licensing Act 2003 Hearings Regulations 2005. As relevant representations were made, members must have determined this application. Members must consider all representations, both written and oral, and with due regard for the licensing objectives, and decide whether this application for a premises licence should be granted or rejected. If members are minded to include any additional conditions other than those offered up by the applicant, they will need to provide their reasons for doing so in the decision notice. Licensing authorities should only impose conditions which are necessary and proportionate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. In addition to this, it was stated that any condition attached to the licence should also be enforceable. Thank you.
Thank you for that, sir. Can I just check that those remote heard all of that? This is a theme throughout this hearing, I'm afraid. Thank you. So members, have you any questions of the officer who made the presentation? Councillor Kander.
In terms of this application, are there other licensed premises on the common or in the vicinity?
I believe there are licensed premises that are nearby to the common. I don't believe Hungerford Park is within the common off the top of my head. I would obviously have to check that. That might be a question more for the applicant, to be honest. No, so yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Foote.
Thank you. Could I just have clarification that the previous application for the sale of alcohol at this premises was for off-licence sales and wholesale sale of alcohol? Thank you.
I believe so, yes, as far as I'm aware.
Members, any further questions? Again, I'm assuming those remote heard that. So the applicant, first of all, any questions for the officers?
Thank you, Chair. Not so much a question, just a clarification. The previous license was for on and off sales.
Apologies, thank you.
Here.
Noted. Nothing else? Objectors, any questions for the officer?
Yes, sir. Can I just confirm the licence and hours application 7 days a week? Did you say it's until midnight? I understand it was.
Yeah, I can go through it again quickly now. So supply of alcohol, so all of the licensable activities are scheduled to finish at midnight.
Thank you.
Board members, questions for the officer? I think no. Thank you. Thank you, Riley, for that. So I would now like to ask the applicant, that Stuart Gibson, Toby Hunter and Mark Slater, although we've been told about one, to make your representations, and you have up to 10 minutes to do so.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. You've heard the application from the licensing officer, and just to clarify, this is a multi-purpose license that's been applied for both on and off sales. There's an area, two areas of the park to be used as licensable areas, and the area for daily use includes the Spirit Barn, the Cider Barn, and the Fungi Club. Now, the hours for those premises are 7 in the morning until 10 p.m. only, 2200 only. This is shown in the application form under non-standard timings. If I could direct you, if you need to look at page 24 of the bundle, it differentiates between the other side of the business and saying that those parts of the business can only trade until 10 p.m. There's no facility for them to go beyond 10 p.m. And should there ever be a case for that, then either a temporary event or a variation would need to be applied for. The second area that is being applied for is the walled garden area, which is between a third and half a mile away from the Spirit Barn area. The use is dual again on this, and the old sort of weekly use is from a Wednesday to a Saturday, where a cafe-style refreshments will be served at the walled garden from state-grown produce. Very similar to a premises will be known to you, Malvelli's, that does a very similar thing. And this is from Wednesday to Saturday till 11:30, where it'd be a cafe-style, very laid-back, ambient atmosphere where people can sit and have a chat. No music involved in that or anything. The second use of the walled garden would be for the functions that are proposed, and they are intended to run until midnight. They would involve the sale of alcohol, regulated entertainment, and late night refreshment. The premises, the licensable activity would cease at midnight, with the premises closed entirely, the park closed entirely at 12:30, everybody gone home. Now, in terms of the functions, a few points to note. The functions involve on sales only. There is no potential for off sales at the walled garden. I mention that purely because there is a fear from objectors that people will take drinks onto the common, and that would involve off sales. Now, off sales are not permitted at that part of the business. So if any time that happened, then quite clearly, as you know, members, that the premises could quite easily be up for review because they've been breach of their license condition. Secondly, and quite happy to have this conditioned, it's a business plan that there will be no more than 15 events in a calendar year. The business do not want any more than 15 events. They might not even get that. That depends on bookings. All the events they hold at the walled garden are private, pre-booked events. So it depends on customers actually booking the venue for a wedding reception and so forth. Given that the hours alter during those potentially 15 occasions across the year, 2 weeks' notice will be given to the licensing authority and the police in advance of such an event taking place, just so the key authorities are aware that such an event and later hour is taking place. Each event, therefore, is individually risk assessed, and if it is deemed necessary that SIA staff are involved, then they will be involved. It isn't envisaged that to be the case, but it is there as an option. But every event is individually risk assessed. As you've heard, after extensive negotiation with two of the key authorities, the environmental health and the police, additional conditions have been added. These are available on pages 6 to 14 of my draft submissions, and no doubt in the papers as well. I mention this because as a result, the police, who are the custodians of the crime and disorder objective, now support the application. And environmental health, who are the custodians of the prevention of public nuisance, also support the applications. Indeed, there are no responsible authority representations whatsoever. We're left with interested party reps, of which you have here before you today. I would put it to you that traffic, parking and road safety are not a matter for this committee today, albeit important, but they're not a matter for the licensing authority. Planning issues, yes. But in terms of the 4 licensing objectives, they do not become an issue once the customer, if you want to call them that, leave the premises and move away from the premises. The applicant is responsible for customers entering and leaving their premises, but once away from the building, the actual premises, they cannot be held responsible for what happens 500 yards down the road or so on. It's not the responsibility, and he couldn't enforce any responsibility for that. Individual responsibility kicks in, and indeed, the guidance is quite clear on this. Section 182 guidance at 1.16 actually states that conditions cannot seek to manage the behaviour of customers once they are beyond the direct management of the licence holder and their staff, but may impact on the behaviour of customers in the immediate vicinity of the premises or as they enter or leave, and should be written in a prescriptive format. So it clearly states that beyond the applicant only has powers that go so far. Once they're out of his premises, he cannot enforce any action and control over them. So we have relevant representations regarding crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour. Most of the business shuts at 10 o'clock at night, and it is not a music event. They are just people enjoying a drink from the cider grown at the premises, etc. Any later events, you have 2 weeks' notice, and they're risk assessed. They're pre-baked only to a maximum capacity of 120 people, maximum capacity. A full record of all attendees will be available because they're all pre-booked events. So at every event, there would be a record of exactly who is there attending that event. There is a fear of the use of the common. This does not apply at all. There is no use of the common, and there's nowhere in the application states that customers will indeed go onto the common. And the consumption of alcohol is within the licensable area on the plan only. So the consumption can only be in the walled garden or in the area of where the spirit barn and the cider barn are located. There is no consumption permitted anywhere else on this application. Any consumption outside of that would be in breach again of their license conditions. I think something Mr. Hunter could probably elaborate on during questions, but it is something he's advised me, is that the common have the right to refuse the applicant access to the common. So all they need to do is say you cannot enter the common from Hungerford Park, and therefore no customer could enter onto the common for consumption of alcohol. So you have two protections on that. You have outside of licensable area, it can't be used, and you have the permission as well. We also have the objection, I'm sorry for speeding through, I'm mindful of time, the prevention of public nuisance here. This is to be in the walled garden area only. Regulated entertainment till midnight from 2300 and late night refreshment the same. They're only licensable from 2300 hours, as you know, given a premises license is in existence. And we have concerns regarding noise and light. There is a natural sound barrier with a tree line around the walled garden. These events take place in the summer, outdoor events, the weather has to be in our favour. And tree line provides a sound barrier for the music and also for any lights that are used in terms of a wedding DJ coming along to play some music. In any event, part of the environmental health condition is that a noise management plan for each event will be provided. And so all of these areas must be considered in advance of any event taking place. Now, in terms of a concern, I've said traffic's not a concern, and it isn't, but people coming and going from the premises is a concern. And the applicant is mindful of the access and the egress from his premises. And so it is determined that there will be a one-way system where people entering the premises will come in through the old Cold Harbour cottage area, and leaving, they will leave via the main entrance. So there'll be no trying to pass on roads, etc. They come in one way, they leave another way. Secondly, there are parking marshals in place that will control the entry in terms of if people are coming by cars, and not everybody does, where to go to park within the park, and people leaving, where cars will be allowed to leave in groups, say, of 10 only, and then wait 5, 6, 10 minutes where a next batch of cars may leave. That is to ensure that congestion does not build up in the immediate vicinity of the roads.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Okay, so there'll be staggered leaving of cars from the premises at the conclusion of the event. In any case, should this application be granted, members, a full dispersal policy will be provided and sent to the licensing authority if required, detailing how entry and dispersal will take place at these events. But please be aware, as I said earlier, a maximum of 15 events in a calendar year. This is not a midnight all year round type of operation. It's in the main a business that will close at 10 o'clock. You may have people sat in the walled garden till 11:30 enjoying a quiet chat, consuming the local produce, if they so wish. That's both food and potentially drink and juice. And the rest of it is a 10 o'clock closing of small numbers of people. Members, that is the application before you today. Hopefully we've been able to put forward the facts. There's a lot of potentially what you're going to hear is not relevant to licensing law. It may have credence in other law, but it doesn't fall under your jurisdiction between the 4 licensing objectives. Thank you very much for your time. And now can I breathe?
Thank you for that, sir. And it's just proper for me to say that we will listen to everything that's been said and give due weight to what is said as appropriate. And of course, we have access to legal advice should we need that. So thank you very much. Can I ask our remote friends if you're still with us? Thank you. So members, any questions for the applicant? Councillor Foote.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate this is probably, well, it isn't really in the strict terms of licensing, but you'll be aware that objections have been raised about the dark skies aspect of the application. Can I ask, you know, are you aware that the applicant is cognizant of that, and for lighting for the venue, say particularly the walled garden, that they're going to pay attention to the dark skies area and have appropriate lighting? Thank you.
Yes, hello, thank you for that question. Yes, we will obviously pay attention to dark skies. We're very much aware of the dark skies being a tourist attraction in the area. Indeed, we had a hotel where I was the DPS in North Yorkshire, which had a very much a dark skies policy. Previous to this, I've run a lighting and discotheques business myself, so I'm fully conversant with the effects of lighting in that sort of area. So yes, absolutely, we'll pay attention to that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Kander.
You mentioned the maximum of 15 events, wedding events in the walled gardens. I can't seem to find any reference to a limited number of events. So is that something that should be included or was, and I've missed it?
Not necessarily should have been included. It was something Mr. Hunter has spoken to me subsequently after the application went forward. I've been down to visit the premises. We've chatted it through, but we'd be happy for that to be conditioned should you be able to grant the license today. It could be conditioned at no more than 15 events in a calendar year. More than happy for that to be a case.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful. Councillor Foote, of course.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I've got one more question. Could I just have clarification? I think you said in your submission that there's going to be a maximum capacity of 120 individuals in the walled garden events. Is that correct? Have I got that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. May I ask our remote friends if you're still with us? It's what the script says. Thank you. So I then move on to the objectors. Any questions for the applicant? Yes, sir. Press your button.
I've got a couple of questions. You say 15 events. Presumably they'd be over the summer months in the main, which could mean one every single weekend from May to September. Is that correct?
The idea is to have 15 events, and logically they were likely to be in the warmer months rather than the colder months.
You say also you're not responsible for things outside your premises other than the Act suggests that you are slightly responsible for activity outside. Is the lane down to the Cold Harbour Junction your premises?
The lane down to the main road is our premises, yes.
So you would be responsible for any activity on that?
Yes, except for the fact that obviously the point's already been made that that's an egress as opposed to, sorry, an access as opposed to an egress.
Yeah. So that leads me to a further question, which is you have allowed access via the northern Hungerford Road point. You've pointed that out. You say there's a one-way system going to be in place, but as I understand it from your application, that's only for events, and the one-way system does not apply for the 7 days a week activity that you intend to have in the cider barn. And given that that access road 7 days a week is used by a whole variety of traffic, which includes tenants, customers, horse vehicles, deliveries, commercial vehicles, footpath users who cross the blind spot, and large farm equipment. How do you intend to manage public safety and nuisance with that large variety of traffic going up and down your premises on that lane?
So the traffic that comes to and fro from the farm, from the park at the moment, is by its very essence mainly daytime traffic, because the businesses that are there inside a yard are operating in the daytime only at the moment. The people that would be leaving via our access road onto the main road past your house would be from side of yard taproom. So yes, those customers would be from when it's dark, principally from 6 o'clock onwards. So 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock, that would be new traffic past your door.
I just point out I have records of the traffic on the lane.
Sir, is this a question? Is this a question?
Would you like to see the records of the traffic on the lane, Toby?
I don't feel I need to, but
Okay.
Just one more question, if I may.
Yes, please.
And this is to Mr. Hunter. He explained that he would, quote, pay attention to dark skies. Could he be more particular and more specific? How and what measures does he propose that would take account of paying attention to the dark skies?
What have you got to say, sir?
Sorry, Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Lebb. I think we're looking at public nuisance as one of the 4 objectives for this. So as I've already said, we recognise the value of dark skies in Britain, not only for their natural purpose, but also for the fact that they're a tourist attraction. We recognise that people living in the countryside don't want intrusion into their vista, and vista includes the sky and its the way it appears. In recent years, since we've been at Hungerford Park in 20 years, we've had huge new lights put up on the rugby pitch, huge new lights put up on the football pitch, all that seem to intrude on the dark skies. So I'm not saying that we wish to add to the dark skies, but we're talking about discotheque lighting within a tent for no more than 15 events a year. And I think we all been to discotheques or we've been to see a band. So we all understand what that may look and feel like, but we're not talking about a rave or strobe lighting hitting Coombe Hill. We're talking about discotheque lighting within a tent. So there will be trees that will be uplit. There will be discotheque lighting within a tent, but I don't suspect that that'll ruin people's enjoyment of the local area. Unlike, I have to say, the rugby pitch and the football pitch that come on all the time and completely light up the local area. But I accept that that's a subjective comment.
Well, indeed. Thank you. Any further questions from the objectors? Yes, sir.
Just
sorry, who's first? Are you continuing remotely?
just one more question, and that is a slightly different topic, which is the I think Mr. Hunter Mr. Hunter's agent addressed a point on the fear of use of the common. He said that there is no such intention. The question that arises out of that, if that is so, looking at the map attached to the application, why is there a path marked leading straight to the common from buildings number 1 and 4 or in their vicinity?
I think you may have misheard what was said. What was said was that in terms of the licensing area, the common is outside of the licensing area. Separately, what was said was that Hungerford Town and Manor have made it very clear to me that it is only their right and not my right to grant me access on to the common. I have had for many, many years a gate that is just off a kissing gate onto the common that accesses the public footpath. I'm sorry if this is a long-winded answer, but it's really important to get to the point of this. Instead of having that gate, I prepared our woodland and a path to go to a gate which I installed, but I didn't take down my fence, importantly. I did not take down my fence. And the purpose of having that gate, which avoided a kissing gate, is if anyone who knows the feeling of being ambulantly incapacitated in one way or another, getting through a kissing gate, either because you're in a wheelchair or ambulantly find life difficult, or you've got a child in a pushchair, I felt that if we were having paying customers who would automatically come off the common, because many would walk across the common through the kissing gate and then onto our land, which they would be entirely capable of doing via the existing footpaths that are there and the existing fences that are there, then I just felt it was better in the interest of disability to have a gate off the common. But as the common has expressly made it clear I can't have that access, then it cannot be an objection to this application because I can't have an access onto the common. So the only accesses I've got are either onto the public footpath or off the two roads that you're well aware of, Mr. Lebb.
Thank you for that. Are we finished remotely? Thank you very much. And I'll just say again, it's our job to make sure that everyone gets to say what they want to say. You'll get some answers that aren't what you want, but they are what they are, and we will again put due weight on them. Sir.
Thank you, sir. There are two questions, if I may. I note some of the provisions put in after speaking to the police. I'm just wondering how the provision of CCTV in the park, the use of SIA registered door staff or staff training help prevent police and hold to account crime and disorder outside our homes or on Hungerford Common or other nearby residential areas as a result of this licence.
That's a question.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Are you clear?
Not totally. I just
Do you want to rephrase that?
Please.
Yeah.
So there have been a number of provisions that I've just laid out in terms of CCTV, SAA licensed door staff for staff training, all seeking to help with crime and disorder, prevention of crime and disorder, which they're specifically put under. I'm just wondering how that helps the prevention and policing and holding to account of crime and disorder outside our homes in other residential areas, or indeed on the common.
As I said in my original submissions, that the Licensing Act determines that the applicant or the licensee is responsible for the prevention of crime and disorder in and around the immediate vicinity of his premises. So anyone who leaves the premises and goes 300-400 yards down the road and perhaps commits an act of antisocial behaviour or whatever cannot legally be the responsibility of the licensee. Should he go after that person down the road and try and take action, he could be liable to action against himself anyway, because it's outside of his jurisdiction. He has control over, the Licence Act is very clear in terms of persons attending a licensed area or a licensed premises must be protected in terms of potential crime, disorder, safety, nuisance, and obviously protecting children. And that's what the Licensing Act sets out to do. So the measures that the police have come forward with, after all, who are the main custodians of the prevention of crime and disorder, and that's what they see as relevant to this application that the applicant should be responsible for, they have asked for and have been agreed. Outside of that jurisdiction, the police recognise the applicant cannot enforce what goes on beyond the realms of his.
Okay, if I can limit it, in light of that then, if I can limit it to your premises, which is the track, as you've already stated, how is it going to be policed on the track, which is your premises? Or the immediate vicinity, if you want to talk about the Hungerford Common, which butches up against the property. So both of which come into the what you just stated there.
Are we clear?
Chair, can I seek clarification? Because as we've talked about in this application, it's a multi-purpose application. So we've talked about the cafe style eating in the walled garden. We've talked about the events in the walled garden, and we've talked about the tap room inside a yard, which is closing at 10 o'clock. Can I please ask whether you want me to direct an answer to all three of those individually, or is it a general question, hopefully encompassing all of them?
So it should encompass all of them because the concern over crime and disorder in this instance can take place in any of those events. And the reality is that the vast majority of people coming up to Hungerford Park will be out with those 15 events. It's the daily use.
So Chair, I'm afraid I'm not clear as to what the objector's particular crime and disorder events might be. Crime and disorder goes into several areas, and I'm simply
just
not
pause
clear.
for a moment, please. I'm not crystal clear myself, and that's probably my fault.
Sorry.
So have another go.
So sorry, sir. So the concern is large numbers of people drinking every day, 7 days of the week, and then coming out of that premises drunk and disorderly. We've had experiences of similar issues as a result of this sort of behaviour outside our homes in the past. And we're worried that with an increase of people going into the Hungerford Park to drink, that will exacerbate that problem. So I'm wondering how the measures that have been put in place to try and prevent crime and disorder, specifically CCTV, the registered door staff and staff training, help prevent those outside of our homes.
I'll pick it up first.
Please.
Chair, first of all, what I'd like to say is it is a very common lazy misconception that everybody who has a drink is drunk and disorderly.
I wasn't referring to everyone.
You made the reference that people coming to the park will drink and be leaving the premises having had a drink, being drunk and disorderly. It doesn't happen. The majority of people in this country who drink do so responsibly.
So, sorry, can we just focus in on the
Yes,
question? It's
we
about
certainly
your
can.
premises and the effect
My point,
around.
sorry, yes, Chair. My point is the majority of people who come to that premises, the vast majority, will leave quietly and safely without causing a nuisance. It is not that type of venue. People are not going to come from miles around in a vehicle because it's not somewhere you can walk from one pub to the next and let's have a drink here. It's a planned destination. And most of the people who are drinking in the Spirit Bar and the Cider Bar are potentially on the premises anyway as customers for the other events and may stay behind and have a drink afterwards and go home in a respectful, responsible manner. The question asked about CCTV staff training. Well, all staff will be trained in terms of how they serve people, who they can serve, who they can't serve, and there will be obviously CCTV in place that records people coming and going. So should there be any incident, it will be on record from the premises and can be dealt with accordingly. But it is not that kind of premises where people come to drink.
That's a more helpful answer. Thank you. Anything else from you, sir?
I've just got one in terms of the noise prevention and how it's exercised in reality. And just if I can offer a personal perspective on this, and it's something I don't like to use as an excuse, but my son's got SEN issues and part of his management plan is a good night's sleep. So when I'm trying to get him to sleep at 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, even up to midnight on a Wednesday or Thursday, or even at the weekend, how is the noise prevention plan going to be exercised in reality so that he can do that?
As we've seen from the conditions agreed with the Environmental Health Officer, that the noise cannot be to a level that would disturb neighbouring residences. Any speakers that are used are positioned not directed at residential homes, directed inwards. And noise levels are at an agreement with environmental health that will not cause a nuisance. Now, should the noise cause a public nuisance, there are also the Licensing Act. If it falls between 11 and 12 o'clock at night, then obviously the licensing authority have powers to intervene. But outside of those hours, there's Noise Nuisance Act of whatever year it is can take effect. So there are measures already in place, legal measures that can be enforced should the premises not live up to its expectations and its promises today. At the moment, that is all I can say on the matter.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
How's that? There we go. So you have a tent currently in the walled garden. Do you intend to replace it with a larger tent?
There is a tent in the walled garden, and that is the intent that's intended to be used. There may be events that require a different sort of tent.
Secondly, is the applicant aware, this is to do with dark skies, that a second phase of lights at Hungerford Rugby Club was refused due to dark skies?
I'm extremely grateful to the objectors for
You
refusing.
know what? I don't want to hear any more about the rugby club. Thank you. Right now, we're talking about something else, but we know what's been said. Have we any more questions from the objectors? Or I'll move to the ward members. Councillor Gaines.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick question, just for clarification from the agent of the applicant, if I may. He mentioned that they were going to be doing some car control on leaving the premises. I could be wrong, but based on 120 people at 10 cars a time, that's going to take almost an hour to get off site. If the premises doesn't close till midnight, then that's going to make it 1 o'clock in the morning. 1 o'clock in the morning with 10 cars every 5 minutes going past your house, because basically from Hungerford Park, you can either go one direction towards Hungerford or another direction.
So you've asked a question, I think, in there.
Okay, I have,
It's
yes.
about arithmetic, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you. Sir, what say you?
What say I is 120 people is a maximum. So 120 people is not the norm. Secondly, not everybody will attend these premises or these events by car. There are such things called taxis. There are other ways of coming and going. And it's not a case of one person per car or two people per car. 120 people maximum does not involve maximum 60 cars. It is going to be a lower number. People come in various ways. There are people that will come to the premises who will actually stay the night at the premises. Is that not right, Mr. Hunter? So it's not a case of everybody comes, everybody goes.
Okay, as before, we hear the question, we hear the answer. Thank you. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, speaking as the current portfolio holder for planning, I did ask for what I think a lot of people are thinking is, whilst you may grant licensing consent as per the applicant's intentions, my question to the applicant is, as I understand it, that license can't be legally fully implemented until the premises have the benefit of the relevant planning consents. Is that correct? And if so, is the applicant prepared to complete the other legal process, i.e. the planning process before implementation, which is the normal way of doing things, frankly?
What say you?
Indeed, what the gentleman behind me has said is correct. As you're well aware, Chair, that planning and licensing do not mix. We've been down that road with the select committees and so forth, and they don't. But that is not a consideration for you to refuse an application due to planning permission. It would be incumbent on you to grant the application. It would then be the responsibility of the applicant to ensure that the correct planning permission exists to make use of that grant of an application. If that is not the case, then the applicant is aware he could be subject to planning enforcement. But that's all I can put at this point.
We are
Yes,
aware
Hunter?
of both the question and the answer, if that helps. Yes, of course.
And the only thing I'd add to that, Chair, is that obviously across the premises, some of the property already has planning consent for the use that we're proposing, some of which I don't believe needs a planning consent, but we're absolutely committed to applying for relevant planning consents if they're so needed.
We, as I say, we note the question and the answer. It's known to the panel. Thank you very much indeed. May I move away from ward members? May I check again if our friends remotely are still with us? Thank you. And can I thank people for those presentations? So I'm moving on now. Councillor James Cole, Ben Ladd, Julie Lloyd, Langley Sharp, objectors to make your representations. You have up to 10 minutes. Your time starts.
We'll start with the 5 minutes.
Who's first? He's on mute, is he?
Oh, Mr. Leb, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, sir, your 5 minutes starts now then.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Ben Leb. I'm agent and counsel for the town and manor of Hungerford, and this is my brief presentation opposing the application of premises license, as noted. Town and Manor is a charity with a very long history of having custody of the Hungerford Portdown Common, which is the adjoining land next to Hungerford Park. Long story short, and very briefly put, the Common is a registered common under the Commons Registration Act 1965, and is subject of the Countryside and Rights of Way Act 2006, CROW, to put it shortly. The common also has various agreements with Natural England and DEFRA for the grazing and management, the grazing of cattle and the management of the grassland. As you will have seen from my submission, there are approximately 120 to 150 cattle grazing there at any one time. Now, the nub of the objection it really comes in three broad arguments. One is the public safety and the public nuisance argument. They are two separate arguments, but I will say they can be dealt with essentially together. And the third one is that effectively you as the decision maker have a duty imposed upon you by virtue of Section 85 of CROW. So that's the Commons and Rights of Way Act 2006. And it is important for Town and Manor to highlight that, of course, the local authority in this case has to exercise its licensing powers in accordance with Section 85, and I've set this out at paragraph 27 of my submission. But in my view, it's important to remember that you need to make this decision in a way that promotes, and you must seek to promote, the purpose of conserving and enhancing the natural beauty of the common. And I say that because the common falls under an area of outstanding natural beauty. So really, you've heard some of the objections and some of the comments coming through the various questions. There is a real concern in increased vehicular traffic to and fro from the venue, which especially that it is extremely likely that most of the traffic will proceed through the common. This creates a real risk. This increased traffic will create a real risk of increased injury and loss of property. And that is because, as I understand, the cattle that grazes this land are effectively, putting it bluntly, they are black, and they're not easy to spot at night. These are cattle weighing about 400 to 500 kilograms on occasion. And of course, one can see the significant risk of personal injury. There is, of course, the prevention of nuisance. You have seen the points I make in my written submissions. Simply put, there is a real concern to the music and the lighting, so the noise nuisance and light nuisance impacting adversely on the wildlife, livestock and habitats, and on the afore discussed dark sky. It really, in my submission, it's simply not good enough to say that actually they will take best care without any concrete measures in place as to how the dark sky would be protected. So I say that when you consider this submission and the application, you will have to make that decision.
1 minute remaining.
You will have to make that decision considering Section 85, your duty to protect the common and to ensure that the environmental protection goals are promoted. I should also say that there was mention in the application and the supporting documentation that, of course, you're entitled to take into account the economic benefit that this would bring to the area. As I understand it, there are no rateable businesses present in Hungerford Park at the moment. As far as I understand it, that would mean that either because there's not been a registration, or that the turnover is so low. So the economic argument in my submission is not very good. It's not something that should be accepted.
All right, sir, thank you. I'm afraid you're out of time, but obviously we've noticed what you've said. There is still time remaining, so who's next? And how many minutes, sir?
3, please, Chairman.
Your allocation.
Okay,
your time starts now.
The scope and ambition of this application represents a significant increase in the risk to public safety, exacerbating public nuisance and increasing potential for crime and disorder. The applicant is asking for a licence covering a wide area of the park, allowing up to 5,000 visitors and licensing hours from 7 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week, and until 11:30 at night, 4 nights a week, not including the 15 events, which will be later. The most significant threat to public safety is the use of the Cold Harbour Ink Pen Road entrance. Hungerford Park have already been denied an application for business development on the basis, and I have it here if you require it, on the basis that the Highways Authority said increased volume used in this entrance represented a significant and unacceptable risk to public safety. And that was for a minor increase in traffic flow, not the significant volumes projected in the current licence application. This dangerous junction and the unmade farm track leading to the park, regularly used by runners and dog walkers and a variety of commercial and farm traffic, are simply not suitable for vehicles entering or exiting the park in any volume for reasons given in detail by the various objectors. The nuisance value to residents of the Cold Harbour junction is also significant, with noise, dust, speed and unruly and criminal behaviour, all of which we have been victims of in the past, some of these issues occurring on a regular basis. We often witness speeding by light commercial vehicles entering and exiting the park, despite the signs to tell them to slow down. From previous large gatherings, we know the noise, particularly late night loud music, will travel far across the surrounding countryside. And as our submission highlights, we have previously experience of nuisance and criminal behaviour, all of which I'm sure you'll appreciate will have a psychological impact on the young children and retired elders who live in and frequently visit our homes. We do not believe that the proposals will ameliorate these concerns at all. And we also note the explicit positions of the applicants that they've already stated that, quote,
1 minute remaining.
The licensee is not held responsible for the behaviour of guests and customers once they leave the premises, albeit, as I've tried to highlight, a number of these issues will occur on the premises, i.e. the track. Furthermore, there is nothing in the proposed usage of the licence which requires or justifies the cider yard to be serving alcohol until 10 o'clock at night, any night of the week, or the Wall Garden Cafe until 11:30, Wednesday to Saturday. The vast majority of the use of this licence, so not the events, with no restrictions at all imposed or proposed on the use of the Cold Harbour entrance and exit. The proposals for the restricted access to this track and entrance concerns events only. Finally, I should note that today prevents me from amplifying our concerns of noise and dark skies pollutions in this area of outstanding natural beauty. And given time, I'll pause it there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. There's 1 minute remaining, I think. 2 rather. I beg your pardon. Sir, your time starts now.
The mayor and I helped get the common speed limit down to 30, and still some drivers speed through it. Nevertheless, the numbers of cattle killed on the road dropped to 0 last year. So the potential for increasing the number of drunks going through the common is not attractive. Drunks and children on narrow lanes don't mix well. There is less drunk driving, but it only takes one. I was brought up with cattle. I worked with cattle as an adult. I still let my parkland to a farmer who runs calves on it every summer. Please imagine, if you will, the effect of broken glass on an animal that cannot understand what's happening to it. It will be maddened, it will run, and even on 3 legs it can do serious damage to humans, cars, and of course itself. I do not feel that this licence will be policed. The idea of 5,000 people, as suggested in the documentation, suggests that either this applicant doesn't know what he's working with or he
1
doesn't
minute remaining.
care about the implications for his neighbours. In any case, that can be dealt with by tens. Langley and David already had experience of what it'd be like if a licence is granted for the Wall Garden, but they'd be more affected by licensing the yard area. Sticking to public safety, I emphasise that West Berkshire refusal of a planning prior approval on safety grounds in 2013. Today's not about planning. We have all the joys of the planning side yet to come. But the Ink Pen Road is no better than 2013. We see far more walkers and cyclists, so entry or exit from the Ink Pen Road doesn't make sense on safety grounds. Equally, having sat the other side of the desk in this room, I understand the principles that you're working with. You may feel that our views do not carry enough weight. You have no choice but to put this licence through. We hope you don't take that view, but if you do, there are mitigations that you can legitimately use.
10 seconds remaining.
Comply with the 4 objectives of licensing and reduce the day-to-day exposure to neighbours and the general public.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Again, I'm looking at our remote friends. Have you been able to hear all of that? You have. Thank you. Members, any questions to the objectors? None from you, sir. Councillor Foote, you content? So I then move to the ward members. Any questions for the objectors? Thank you. Could I thank those who have presented? Sorry? Yeah. Yeah, no, of course. Have you any questions?
I would like to ask. Thank you, Chair, yeah. So first one, I think, probably goes to Mr. Lebb. You said there were no rateable businesses, and I think you then corrected yourself and said there are some rateable businesses. Are you aware that there are rateable businesses on the park?
I should say my instructions were that there were none registered to the knowledge of my clients. I stand to be corrected if you say to me that there are.
Thank you.
My second point I was making that I have no knowledge of any, but that doesn't mean that there aren't.
My second question is: there's a lot being made about us being a bad neighbour. You'll be well aware, I'm sure, that we have expensive bloodstock on the farm. We have pigs, we have sheep, or have had sheep, so we're very aware of animals. Can I just clarify, are you aware of any disturbance between us and the park in the 20 years that we've been there, or in fact any matters between the park and the common since 1248, since they've been neighbours, that have given you rise to cause complaint to the police in those 20 years?
I personally know of no such thing, but I understand my clients messaging me now, but I don't know anything.
Okay, thank you. That's a question and an answer. Any further questions?
One more, please, to Mr. Sharp. Mr. Sharp, you make point about crimes that have already been committed near your house. So outside of the rural crime that we all know all about, because we're all broken into all the time, are there any crimes that you're aware of that people leaving Hungerford Park have committed on your doorstep?
I can't comment where the individuals came from, but we have had crime, and David can speak to some that's specifically on his house, and I'll let him respond to that in a minute. But we've also had people vandalising property outside our house, yes, and under the influence when they were doing so, or so it appeared at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, thank you. We know question and answer.
Can I just ask David, my neighbour, who's also one of the objectors, to respond to that, please, sir?
Yes, in the spirit.
In addition to that, we have had people apparently leaving your premises because they're coming down the lane, standing outside our drive and urinating.
Again, it's a question, there's an answer. Yeah.
I only mention it too because it is your property.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions as well, if I may.
You may.
Thank you. It wasn't one of my questions, but just to follow up on that incident you've just mentioned, did you report it to anyone?
No.
Thank you. Most of my questions, I think Mr. Hunter has picked up on as well, but one I want to ask, the two gentlemen here both made reference to the premises are allowed 5,000 people. Where did you get that from?
Somewhere in the documentation.
Do you know why it's there?
We'd be fascinated to know why it's there.
Okay, that's not something that the applicant or any applicant puts on any document. That is pre-written by the government on the application form, and it's done there for one reason and one reason only. If a premises intends to have more than 5,000 people attending, and we're talking here festivals, we're doing 5,000 people, obviously a lot. You wouldn't find a pub having 5,000 people. If there are more than 5,000 people attending an event, that means additional licensing fees are charged to that applicant, both as an application fee and as an annual fee. That is the only reason the break of 5,000 people is there. It's got nothing to do with Mr. Hunter saying we will have 5,000 people here. Mr. Hunter's already given you a capacity of 120 for his events.
Well, we're delighted to hear that that will no doubt be reflected in the conditions, both for the wall garden and in a different manner for any license that may be granted on the barn.
Thank you. We're
yard area.
Question and answer. I think we hear.
Chair, that's all the questions
a little bit. Any further questions? Yeah. Okay. So thank you again to those who presented. So we're moving on down our agenda, and I'm now looking at the ward members who have 10 minutes if they need them.
Thank you, Chair. I shouldn't take 10 minutes, and I believe that Councillor Vickers also wants to add something at the end of that. Obviously, an awful lot has been said today, so some of the things I'm going to say are going to be repeated, I'm afraid, purely because this is pre-prepared. The site is 2 miles from Hungerford. Even on weekdays, there's very little public transport. On weekends, it's non-existent. I appreciate what the agent said about taxis. He'd be very lucky if he finds a taxi anywhere near Hungerford. Customers using these facilities will either have to walk to the site. There are no footways and very, very narrow roads. So narrow at some points as to require passing places for traffic to drive. Statistics proves that even 1 unit of alcohol can impair judgment. There is, I understand, a gate, which has been confirmed today actually, on Hungerford Common in situ. On summer nights, this poses no immediate concern to the traveller going home. However, if they have taken merchandise, because let's face it, it's all very well saying there is no, you can't take alcohol off site, but people can purchase alcohol and they can hide it and take it away with them. Taking merchandise with broken bottles and glasses will present grazing cattle and dogs out for a walk with great danger. In the winter, anyone venturing onto the common in the dark takes their life into their hands due to the uneven and sudden appearances of mounds and dips. So going over the common, having even a unit of alcohol could be very dangerous. Government are promoting active travel, and since the pandemic, there are more walkers and cyclists on the road. This is a particularly attractive part of the world, as I live in it, and very popular with both. Adding the number of additional cars to make these venues viable will increase the potential for accidents. As we've already heard about previous issues with traffic on that road. That's public safety. The prevention of public nuisance. The Cider area has requested a licence for 17 hours a day, including Sundays. 7 days a week. I think that's excessive. With staff and deliverers arriving and leaving outside these times, this will cause local residents a great deal of disturbance. As we've already heard, dark skies encourage wildlife and additional bird species. Having lighting during those hours so close to the common and countryside may even reduce those numbers. Noise travel so much further at night, and there are plans for both live and recorded music in the wall garden until after 10 p.m. Cars leaving the two sites so late will travel past residents in Cold Harbour and Park Street in Hungerford, meaning additional noise. Prevention of crime and disorder. As this site is in the countryside, this is policed less regularly than other areas more populated. There is no street lights, so this could be an invitation for antisocial behaviour and criminal behaviour. I believe that we ought to think about mitigation if we're mind to actually agree to this application. And some of those things might be reducing the number of hours that the licensing is open, the license is given for, and some mitigation when it comes to traffic management, both going on the site and off the site, and considering where within there the traffic might go into the site and come out of the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers.
Chairman, members, one of the hats I wear as a councillor in West Berkshire Council is as the representative on the AONB councillor partners. And at the last meeting, we were reminded that under the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act passed late last year, there was a clause which is now implemented, unlike most of that act, that all public bodies must now treat the AONB and all protected landscapes such as that in a much stronger fashion. What had been in the past a duty to merely have regard to the purpose of conserving and enhancing natural beauty now has been strengthened to say that local authorities, including as licensing authorities and all public bodies, must seek to further that purpose of conserving and enhancing natural beauty. So I would like members to take that strengthening of the protection of the AONB into account, both in regard to what we've heard about dark skies, but just the general tranquility that is part of that natural beauty that my ward, Councillor Gaines's ward, which is the largest ward in the whole of the AONB, covering 4 counties, I am very determined to see that that act is enforced in every respect. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you both for that. So members, any questions for the ward members? No? Thank you. Can I check again with our remote friends? Sorry, it's the script. Thank you. Are you happy with that?
It's up to each other.
Yeah. Yes, you may.
Just a quick question, because Councillor Gaines mentioned delivery times. Do you have a view as to what delivery times you would typically be using and your suppliers would be providing?
The gate opens onto the farm at the moment at 6:30 in the morning. I mean, we would be very happy to accept licensing conditions in terms of delivery times. That wouldn't be unnormal. What tends to happen in the license trade is that deliveries arrive first thing in the morning. But again, we'd be very happy to have a discussion about that. Fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll ask the.
Yes.
Yes? You may.
Hang on. You mentioned mitigations possibility in your delivery. Would you care to elaborate on that, in particular with the traffic?
Of course, I can do that. So as far as public safety is concerned, obviously, one of the things that we've heard today is that actually the traffic is one of the biggest problems with the site. So the best way would be to bar the southern access entirely for guests and public traffic, whether to use a walled garden cafe event or barn area, and the southern access could then be used just by commercial vehicles. Now, I'm not a traffic expert, and I'm sure that's not really what a licensing is about, but to actually think about the applicant thinking much more about how that traffic movement is going to work on that site. Because as we know, having gates locked, etc., is certainly one of those things. And then public nuisance, entry and exit restrictions, as I've mentioned, with those going in and out of the thing, and reducing the hours, as I mentioned in my report as well. So, yeah, I mean, looking much more holistically at how that traffic enters and exits the site, and who enters and exits the site, and at what times they enter and exit the site are the important things, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, we should have actually taken the applicant's questions of the ward members first. That it matters overly much. Do you have any questions for the ward? You don't. Does anybody else on the objector side have a question for the ward members? I'm again looking at our remote people who are nodding in my direction. So thank you, councillors. So we're moving through our agenda now. I'd like now to invite the applicant, if they wish to address any comments made at the subcommittee meeting. You have up to 10 minutes to do so.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Hunter may wish to jump in behind me. I don't intend to take 10 minutes. Chair, just to sum up, this is, despite everything you've heard today, this is fairly simple application. You have one side of the business wanting to trade until 10 p.m. and then you have another side of the business that Wednesday to Saturday would potentially stay open till 11:30 in an ambient cafe style environment, and then up to a maximum of 15 events that run till midnight. We've heard what people talk about hours and maybe modifying the hours, but we've all been to weddings. And usually wedding receptions run till midnight. It's kind of the norm, and people coming to book a wedding reception would potentially expect that. They would want the reception to run till then. The other point, couple of points to mention that are relevant here is, one, not everybody stays to the death. People do actually go home early. It happens. And two, this myth that everybody who puts alcohol to their mouth gets blind drunk. I find that it annoys me because I hear it a lot in license hearings. This assumption that everybody who drinks gets absolutely hammered. It's not the case. So it is a fairly simple application before you. We've heard a bit about hours and delivery hours and so forth, but there is currently no restriction on the hours without a license. So the hours are permitted as they do at this current moment in time, opening at, I think the gentleman said 5:30, but there is no, I don't believe there is a restriction on that. It may be for you to impose one where it could be taken into place. There's a lot about the area of natural beauty. It is our submission that this application does not compromise that in any way. The measures taken by the applicant will ensure that doesn't compromise that. You've heard he has vast experience in lighting and so forth. And we're not talking massive lighting. You're talking a few lights that a DJ will come along with a deck and have a few lights. He will be undercover for health and safety reasons because, hey, presto, it could rain at night and electrical equipment outside and playing music would make for a very interesting reception. But he would be undercover. And therefore, again, that is another barrier to the lighting. There is a walled tree garden round the in full blip, which will take up an awful lot of the potential light nuisance. So the night skies thing, I think it's a red herring before you today. I don't think that's going to be compromised in any way. What you are left with, Chair and members, is the 4 licensing objectives. And if you take into account what you've been told today, you've been told a lot about what you must do and what you have a duty to do. And also in the papers, it didn't get mentioned today, but in the papers, you have the threat, if you grant this application, it will be appealed. Well, we're all shaking in our boots here. It really should not come into any conversation whatsoever. It is for you, committee, to make that decision, a balanced decision on what you've heard today, not on a threat of we'll appeal it if you grant it. And a lot of assumptions are made. We've already said that the licensable areas are such as shown on the plans, which are quite limited. But we've already been told, well, people will hide drinks and take them onto the common, and they'll break glass and they'll throw bottles around, and then cattle will get glass. This is wild assumptions. The applicant has sat before you today and said this will not happen. But that doesn't meet with the narrative of the objectors. They want, oh, no, that has to happen because that's part of our argument. Chair, I'd put it to you that that part is nonsense. And the applicant should be taken on face value because he very well knows, should he not fulfill his obligations today that he puts before you, that he'd be back here very, very soon in a review hearing with a view to having his licence revoked. And even, depending on the nature of the breach, could face criminal proceedings. That is not unknown to him. He's well aware of what his responsibilities are. I think you've heard he's a very experienced licensee and a very experienced member of the community. And will run this business, should you be minded to grant it, in a responsible manner as we've set out today. Thank you. That is my submissions. I don't know if Mr. Hunter wants to add anything.
Thank you. No, I'd just like to obviously thank everyone for their time. I think objections are really helpful in cementing the way an operation should be run, and certainly some of the conditions that almost certainly have been agreed with the police and environmental health and may become conditions as a consequence of this hearing will be beneficial to us in running a business. I have my personal license in front of me, which was issued by West Berkshire. I've held it for a very long time. I've been a DPS in several counties, running several businesses, and I've never had a problem with the police in that time. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen, for the summing up. For the very last time, did our remote friends hear all that? They did. Thank you. So thank you all for your contribution. Members will now retire to consider the oral representations made as well as the written submissions set out in the agenda. A written decision notice will be issued to interested parties setting out the verdict as soon as possible, but in any event within 5 working days. Thank you for coming along to this meeting today. And just pause for a second, please, until the Zoom host tells us that the broadcast has ended. And could I just offer my personal thanks to everybody for the way this meeting is being conducted and the very helpful way information has been shared. We appreciate it.